Okay. We are officially live. Welcome if you're just joining. I'm just joining myself. So I'm going to get into what the goal of today's live stream is going to be in just a moment. I have a lot of work to do. I'm going to try to do it while I'm helping people as well. Or if you don't have questions for me and you just want to follow along, I'll be editing a job today. Sort a few things out before we begin. There we go. One thing I really want to do is just kind of update everyone on, oh hey, we got our first person commenting at least. I want to update everyone on where I've been. I think most of you probably know, or presume, perhaps. Setting up the stream today was beyond belief annoying. The Canon web software, the webcam software, is incredibly annoying, and every time I do a live stream it takes me an hour to get it to work right, maybe more. No one's answered what's wrong with the software in all the forums, but I actually think I figured it out, but I forget each time. You got to take out the memory card. If the memory card's in the camera, it has an issue. It will try to connect with, I think, the webcam, not the webcam utility, but the EOS utility. Even if you don't have that software installed, it will try to connect to it, and so taking out the memory card solves that. I will keep up the good work. Thank you. So, here's where I've been. I've been working, and that, I think a lot of you guys know that I am a professional photographer who also has a YouTube channel, which is a very difficult thing to balance, to be honest. I've said it before, it gets very difficult, and I try to rationalize the time I give it, but I'll try to do an edit and also answer questions, and I'm going to try that again, but ultimately I end up doing more question answering than actual editing. But I do have a pretty tight deadline on this job. This job was I wasn't hired to photograph the LA Marathon. My client, which is Westfield, which probably a lot of you guys know, the marathon ended at their mall, and they had a lot of brand activations and that kind of thing, and they also wanted me to document that the LA Marathon actually ended right at the mall, which was really cool. Honestly, I got a few images that I really think I'm really gonna like when I get to review them. I was surprised by how emotional I got photographing the marathon. There's something just so beautiful about people trying themselves. I saw people in their 80s running it. I saw people struggling. I got to basically photograph the last quarter mile. And you would just see so many people came out, whether they knew a runner or not, just to cheer people on, just saying, you've got this, you've got this. And it was really inspiring for me to watch. And that was a nice touch, because for me, when I go to work, it's work. But that doesn't mean I completely disconnect from what's going on in front of me. I might be very focused on the work, but I do enjoy it as a person. And so this was a really cool one for me. Not all of them are. Some jobs are just jobs, and you get nothing out of it outside of the reward of working. But this one I really did enjoy. So we're going to take a look at it. The only reason I haven't pulled it up just yet is because I'm on an aging computer, and I cannot wait to replace it. However, they just haven't released the computer I'm looking for. I'm looking to replace a 2013 iMac with whatever is going to come next with the M1 chip from Apple. I've considered switching to PC more than once, but in the end it doesn't really seem to make sense for me, and so I'm not going to. And so it's kind of frustrating where I'm ready in many ways to upgrade my computer. I've been working a ton. I can afford it. I need it. but the computer I want is not out. And, my brain has wandered around trying to find alternate solutions. Oh, maybe I'll upgrade my laptop, and then I'll get a monitor for that new laptop and all this stuff. And in the end of the day, I think I need to just wait. But even my laptop is kind of sucky. It's an old Dell XPS. I don't remember when I bought it, maybe 5 years ago, but it's not really up to par. Lightroom is still not opening, so I'm going to have to shut it down and restart it. So yeah, just the amount of work I've had, it's basically been like right up at that level where it was just manageable. And I mean just manageable. I don't think there was, if I had just another job or two more in the last like month and a half, I don't think I could have handled it. I really did want to hire an editor again, which I've done in the past. The reason I didn't hire an editor is because I knew I could manage, and I knew I had my slow season coming up. So my slow period is approximately mid-December, and then it will start to ramp up in March. So I may not work in January. That's happened where I just did not book a job, and I might maybe only work a couple of times in February is what I'm preparing for. And so because I knew I had an endpoint, I decided to just handle all the work myself. However, I did want to, sorry, now it's telling me I have a buffering issue. Because I had an endpoint, I said, okay, I'm just going to handle it myself. I'll rest when I get the opportunity. Last week, I finally had a little bit of time. I powered through my editing for the week, and I was able to take 4 days off and go up to San Francisco, which was really cool. I'm looking to get whatever the replacement for the current 27-inch iMac is. That will suit my needs. Even if it has the basic M1 chip, and I don't think it will, I think it will be plenty sufficient. I'm managing on a 2013 machine, and it's annoying. And it is officially at that point where it's not worth it to me to save money, in the sense that it's taking me longer to edit. My computer's having issues that are just also prolonging it, not just like the speed in which I can process and all that. But yeah, I'm having weird issues that I do think are computer related. I think I'm having a RAM issue that is affecting my internet speeds, which I would think would be unrelated, but I'm not savvy enough in computers to know. But basically, I can connect at like 400 megabytes per second plus on my phone or my laptop, but then my iMac, the most I can ever get is like 60. So I think anything would be better. Let me reopen Lightroom. Darnell, what do you mean? I don't know what you mean. Thanks for joining, everyone, and it's really good to be back doing this. I haven't done it in a long time. So I'd love to hear, if you're a working event photographer, how busy you've been. I've been trying to get a sense for why I've been so successful lately, and I do think it's a mix of I've done the right things for a while now, and it's finally culminating, all the work I've done. And things are just opening up again, and people are hungry to throw their events. They've put them off for a long time, and they're not waiting anymore. And they needed to get them in before the holidays, which is normal. I typically have my strongest month in October. I would say even since the beginning, I've always had a good October. But this October, I actually broke my record. I made more this month than I ever have in my career, by 50% perhaps, close to 50%. Now I had to hire out people quite a bit, and so my net was a little bit lower, but my gross I think was definitely about 50% higher than my previous record, which wasn't bad. What I'm saying about the chip is that I think the M1 is probably sufficient and would be such an upgrade for me personally because I'm on such an old computer. The Pro and Max, I mean, I don't think that Max is even close to being necessary. But again, I'm no expert. I just want a computer that works. I used to care a lot more. I used to do more research. Nowadays I just want what works. Just realized I'm facing away from my microphone, so I hope you guys heard me okay. Okay, let's see if Lightroom is ready to go. It's ready. Okay, so I'm gonna go through these. I'll pull it up in just one moment. It's gonna start out pretty boring, and you're gonna see I'm shooting pretty conservatively. I try to control how much I shoot. I try to really, especially for detail shots, I really line up my shots I'm pre-visualizing. I know exactly what I want, and then I make sure I get it right. I look at every corner of the frame. I make sure before I press the shutter that the image is going to be immaculate, and so I try to shoot that way. Back in the old days, I used to use like single shot unless I was shooting action. Now I just leave continuous on, and I find that even though I'm doing that, sometimes I get more than one shot. And then when I go up to like 20 frames per second with the electronic shutter, it's ridiculous. This camera's burst mode is ridiculous, and it's not necessary most of the time, but there is going to be a moment here and there where it's kind of cool to be able to guarantee you get the shot. Maybe you're dealing with fatigue and you're not able to time your shots as well. This job started off as a 3-hour job, but they went ahead and extended it an hour, so I got 4 hours in. And for a lot of it, I was in the sun, and it was really blinding, and I was starting to deal with a little bit of fatigue. Now, do I feel like it affected the work a ton? No, not at all. But for me, I think of this as I would think of an athletic sport type of thing, where I'm really aware of when I'm not at 100%. And so even if I'm at 98%, I'm aware. All right, let's pull up the screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start powering through. I'll just start powering through the editing, because like I said, I do have a bit of a deadline here. Normally I get these to my client the Monday after the weekend, but I shot on Sunday and it just didn't happen, and that's okay. So I will, again, I'll glance and take a look at questions here and there. And I'm using an R6, and I'm considering actually upgrading my backup camera to an R5 and then making R6. I don't know yet. Maybe even the R3. I think the R3 might be too much for me. So currently what I'm doing is I'm shooting with the R6 and the 5D3 as my backup. And my editing workflow is typically going to be, it depends, but typically I am going to be culling and then editing. So usually I cull, then I do a batch edit, like all the stuff, the global edits, basically everything that will be applied to every single image. You see, like, the memory is not keeping up, where I'm hitting X and the image isn't going away. I don't know if my computer is on its last legs or what. But yeah, see, I'm having these problems. And I'm at the point where I feel like it would be more financially worth it to me to spend the money on new gear. This is taking too much of my time. So even though I'm hitting reject on these images, they're not going anywhere, even though I filtered out the rejected images. Kyle, hope all is well. Thanks for doing these live edit sessions. Much appreciated. Yeah, you got it. I enjoy doing it. Except for the fact that my computer is terrible. Let me see what... So you guys can probably see on the screen, I'll reject an image, but it doesn't go anywhere. It's not getting... I'd love to count up the jobs I shot in October, but some of them required live editing and they're not on this computer. But At some point, I'll upload them to this computer as well. That was a job I did that only because I was friends with the person. I'm not interested in doing maternity photos. And yeah, the R6, I think really, I wish it came in at a lower price point, but it's actually an incredible camera for what it costs. And I was afraid they were going to kind of hamstring it a little bit, but they really didn't. It's like 90, I feel like it's almost 100% there with the R5 minus the resolution. So I might have to, I don't know if anyone has a recommendation. I might have to actually close Lightroom again. Yeah. All right, well, I'm back. So I'll just answer questions and hopefully I can get it working. So, what are your favorite lenses for evening, night, street photography? I want to make a video on that topic, actually. So, you guys know this channel is about... It's about me, really. It's about what I know. So, I mostly talk event photography. I guess it is an event photography channel. I mean, obviously. But I don't want it to be about the gear. I don't want to use gear I'm never going to use and then review it. But I've decided I need to kind of ease up on like this anti-gear almost stance I have, where I've avoided talking about it unless I just really wanted to. I have done a lens review here and there. I've never reviewed a camera. But I don't think there is anything wrong with reviewing the gear I use, and I think people would enjoy that. I think it would help people. But when I do these reviews I'm considering going forward, it's going to be more of a reviewing the 50mm focal length for event photography, rather than saying like, here's the Canon 51.2 lens review. So that said, I'm making a video on that actual lens, but more the focal length. The 50's become my favorite lens to use currently. I still really like the 135 for a lot of things, but if we're just talking about what I'm enjoying shooting with the most right now, and it may partly be because it's so novel for me, because I never did it before, would be the 50. The 50 is phenomenal. From a technical sense, like, I don't really care about how sharp lenses are and all that. I don't pixel peep, but it is incredibly sharp. What's really surprised me is how fast it will focus. No, it will not technically focus as fast as like the 70 to 200, which I did finally purchase the RF. But it feels like it's right there in that elite level of focusing. And that's a mix of, I think, how good of a focuser it is and the R6. But what's been even more impressive is how I can practically see in the dark with the lens. At f1.2, it can still find people's eyes in like a very lowly lit bar. Or even I photographed a party that was outdoors and very little ambient light, and I was locking on all night to people's eyes. The other thing I really love about it, it's sort of cliche, you know, the 50 being a normal lens and all that. But I do really like the idea of not skewing how the viewer is perceiving the image too much, or perceiving the moment too much. And the 50 is good for that. I find it's a great lens for just, it's very light. I can get into where I can get where I want to get really quickly, grab the shot and move on. I can do individual, like those close-up candids I like, over the shoulder, that kind of thing. But it's also great for groups of 2 or 3 or 4. If you're photographing an outdoor event, I'd even say you could probably just use that 50 and the whole time and not worry. And I've done that. I've shot an event where I used it for like 80 to 95% of the time. And no, I'm not completely mirrorless. I'm still shooting with the 5D Mark III. I always thought it was a little silly when some people are like, oh, I'm just going to upgrade my backup camera. I've got, mirrorless is so amazing, blah, blah, blah. And there's a part of me that's actually considering it, not because I think mirrorless cameras are so much better. They are a lot better in a lot of ways. That doesn't mean I enjoy using it more, but from a technical standpoint, they are superior. For me, it's more like the functional stuff. Like, I'm getting really frustrated with every time I want to change lenses. If I go from an RF lens to an EF lens, and then I go back to like an RF lens, and then I want to go to a different EF lens than the one I was using, I have to first get the old EF lens that I was using, take off the adapter, switch it, take off the RF lens, and put that lens on. And it becomes this whole like juggling act that I'm not really a fan of. I've been, only because the jobs I've been shooting have required it, not required, but made sense to shoot with 2 camera bodies. I've been doing that a lot lately, but only because of the types of jobs I've been shooting. I still do really like using 1 camera, 1 lens, and then just making the switches in, going to my bag here and there, switching out lenses, whether it's to shoot in a different style or because I knew something was about to happen that would require a different focal length. But when you're doing that and you have to fumble around with adapters, it gets a bit annoying. My muscle memory has also adjusted after a few months, where when I have my 5D, when I'm looking to press play, I'm pressing in the wrong place now. My initial experience was like the first month or two, I really liked the R6. It's such an effective tool. It really is. It's so effective. But when I would find this weird like comfort, like, hello old friend, and I felt I really liked it. And then I would look through the optical viewfinder and I really liked that. And I kind of think I want to keep a DSLR around for, like my forever DSLR, and I might just keep it forever and not sell it. I do have an old 7D Mark II that I'm going to sell at some point. All right, other questions? Good luck with the meeting, Joe. Joe was actually, Lyric Tenor was able to help me on a few of these jobs. I needed a second shooter. What are your fave lenses for evening? I answered that sort of. Right now it's the 50 because I can shoot at 1.2 in the dark. It's incredible. And Canon, I believe, still has the best range of how dark you can shoot in. What about a 35 millimeter? Is it good for outdoor shooting? I suspect it would be very similar. I would find it to be a little less versatile as far as like if you're specifically wanting to get those like groups of 2 or over the shoulder candids and all that. I'm gonna do a video in which I really show. Maybe I can pull it up. Let's see if Lightroom loaded, because what I can do, I have to do my actual edit. At some point I have to talk less and do my work. But let me pull up a job that would be a good example of what like the 50 was good for. I have to remember when I shot that. Here we go. So I'll pull up Lightroom. Looks like it's doing well enough to at least view and one thing I don't like about OBS on Mac is that you can't really share the Lightroom video window. You have to share full screen. Okay, so here's a job I mostly shot with the 50. I shot it like 80-90% of the night probably. What I've been doing a lot of, if I'm using 2 camera bodies, is I'll use like the 50 on my R6 and then I'll leave like a 17-40 on the 5D3. And then I usually am shooting stuff that requires a greater depth of field, and so although I'm good at focusing with the old DSLR system, I just figure it's more forgiving because I'm shooting with a wider depth of field. So we'll go to metadata. Slow. The only path, what was difficult about it? I also have a lot of thoughts on the RF 70-200. I was shooting a conference job with 14 other photographers, and a bunch were like, "Oh, I'm really jealous, man. You got the newest one." I'm like, "Who cares? Like, it doesn't matter." But then as I used it, I know technically it's sharper and all that, but man, the old one was sharp. But I actually really think I like the new design. I think it does make sense. Okay, so let's go to the R6. Actually, let's go to the 50, which will... So here, these are all with the 50. I can get detail shots. And go through it quick. It's good for detail shots, but it's also good for... I can get candids, I can get groups of people. You can kind of really just get everything. This work gets much better as more... You'll find that as the night goes on, like, people become more lively, there's more people to photograph, and you can get more interesting stuff. So I can get shots like this, you know, these candids with a little wider field of view, over the shoulder shots. And so I'll just like kind of move around a crowd, quickly shoot over someone's shoulder. What it's not great for would be those like extreme close-up candids, those moments I like to capture really close. Those usually don't have context. It's just like a close-up of the person's reaction. And so I have like 1,000 of these, almost. You can kind of shoot through little groups of people, like here. And I was able to even... I hate to say this stuff because I don't want people to think they need a $2,300 lens to be a good event photographer. But it truly has been a pleasure to work with, but I waited over 10 years to get a 1.2 lens. I never owned one. But yeah, I was also able to shoot pretty much the entire night with it, even after dark. So what we can do is scroll down. Let's really go down. So I experimented that night with flash as well, and I realized, you know what, I actually prefer to just shoot available. So here, this is like almost dark, and I'm still shooting with the 51.2. I think I might have gone up to like an ISO of possibly 4,000. Yeah, 4,000, but I think that's totally fine, and I didn't even bother like cleaning them up. There was a job that was just super low, like super low lighting with no opportunity to bounce flash at all recently, and so I was at 4,000 and above, which I've never like really done for like most of an event. This is like the last 20 minutes, you know. But for the first time, I bothered to clean up the noise, and I was surprised it worked really well. So yeah. I mean, it was dark. It was really dark, and I'm still getting shots by dropping down to 1.2. It's very versatile. Okay. Other questions? David, were you the one that asked me about how to edit down? Like, you didn't want to deliver all 1,000 files? I actually shot a video answering that, but I felt like it didn't meet my standard, so I'm gonna work on it again. I think a 24 to 105 is fine. It's very versatile, you know? There's no correct answer. Like, if you want it to you want to keep it simple, I tell people get a 24 to 70 and a 70 to 200. That doesn't mean it's all you'll ever need, but it's going to cover like 95%. But that said, like 24 isn't quite wide enough for some of the stuff you're going to see today if I can actually get my editing done. I'm needing to use a 17 to get the shots I really want. But I also think, you know, maybe that 16 millimeter prime could work and you don't have to get the 17 to 40. But I love the 17 to 40 for like dance floors and that kind of thing. You can do some cool tricks like drag your shutter and zoom out if you want to get like light trails. Okay, wasn't you? Yeah, and no, so the thing with the audio is there is audio in the left side. It's lower than the right, and I was aware of it. I just didn't have that much time. I think it might have to do with the positioning of the mic. But I went into the software, if I'm remembering correctly, you can set it up where if you're only connected to one Go mic, that it will duplicate it and it won't be like mono one side. So a weird thing I noticed with the RF 70 to 200 is, I don't know if it just has a better indicator now if it's not getting focus, but one of the things about it was I think it could focus closer than the old version, but I never really noticed it to be a problem in the old version, and I feel like with the RF I'm constantly being notified that that I can't actually get my focus. Alright. I think I answered everyone's question. I'm going to see if my work will load up. You guys are pretty much going to see everything. As I was getting at earlier, I started out being very conservative, and then eventually I ended up shooting a lot more because of the nature of the work. There it is. Inanimate things, there's no excuse to overshoot. You should pre-visualize, know the exact shot you want, line up every corner of your frame, etc. But with people, it's a little bit different. It's going to be more dynamic. Also, I wanted to experiment a little bit more with the features of my camera, even though I've had it for a while. And so I wanted to experiment more with the electronic shutter. I'll often do more than one run because it can be a little harder. Like getting 10 images down to 5 can be hard, but really it should be down to 2, let's say. What's helpful is being a little bit more removed from it, so I'll give it like a day. So ideally, my objective today, so this is a coloration from, he was under like a yellow umbrella that I was framing out of the shot. That's why he looks yellow. I could probably fix that. But yeah, being a bit removed is helpful, so I'll usually do like one pass. Sometimes I'm not like rigid. I'll do a little bit of editing. After that first pass, I will then, so he was kind of like not posing, but he was like kind of hamming it up. He knew I needed a shot. I'm sure he wanted a good shot of himself. And so I shot a bunch. I was like, I'm okay with that, getting a bunch and then editing down. I'm not always like super strict about it, but typically I'm really shooting with intention, trying to capture a specific moment. I try to question a lot of my beliefs. Part of that is as a teacher, You don't want to just teach. You know, a good teacher protects their students from their influence, you know? And so I like challenge my own ways of doing things all the time now, especially that I do a YouTube channel. So for example, shooting with 20 frames per second, which I never would have done before. The name of the game of these, so my client is Westfield, the mall, and they have been hiring me for their brand activations, etc. They have two main spaces, this one and this one. They use it for a few. They use it for a few things, but it's mostly in-house and to basically sell the space to brands. And so the idea is to capture two things. One, the setup and what it looked like when ASICs took over the space. This is a pretty mellow one. There's been some really cool ones. But also they want to show the interaction. And so having the space full of people is also important. So ideally, we're just going to delete that one. Ideally, I'm scheduled early enough to get shots of the empty space, but then also shots of the people filling that space, interacting with the details of it, the brand. Sometimes if I have downtime, Igor, I will edit down in camera. I find it to be pretty quick. Or I'll rate if there's like an image I'm like, holy cow, I love that. You know, that kind of thing. I don't like these shots. These get a lot more interesting later on. Signs aren't interesting to me, but this is what the job is, you know? So later on, I'll try to bring, it was an overcast day, I'll try to bring that back. Typically, I had to be very lean today with my setup. What's today? Was this 2 days ago? Because I was going to be photographing 3 areas. I probably walked like 7-8 miles that day too. And so I basically had to carry everything on me, so I didn't have my polarizing filter, which I used to kind of darken the skies. I do that, and then I do a few things in Lightroom additionally to just bring back the skies and even them out with everything else. Oh, there's a good update. They finally support the R6 profile. Like, you can do camera faithful. You couldn't do that before, so I actually had to make my own like Canon skin tone profile, which I then sold to people on YouTube for thousands of dollars, even though it didn't cost me anything. And it took me like literally 5 minutes to make. I'm kidding, because I would never do that. It actually did take me a lot longer. And if I can, I'm sure it's not hard to figure out how to export it if anyone wants it for free. But now they do support the R6 files, where you can easily just go camera faithful. I don't know if this is the first place person, but he was the first person to make it to the mall. So people interacting with the sponsors, that kind of thing, detail shots. If the person that asked me about like shooting 1,000 files and then still feeling like even if they get it down to 500, like that would be too many. I don't think your goal should be to, don't worry about what's too many. Just worry about, are you delivering a quality product? Oh, so these I actually had to shoot, not blind, but like over a fence. I was just more experimenting. This was out of the scope of the job. I didn't really need to shoot these. This is all marathon stuff. Mine is like marathon adjacent. But I shot some runners because I wanted to. Something crossed my mind. So at some point you guys are going, if you are an event photographer, you're going to be asked about a full buyout. A full buyout means you don't own the photographs. You're a work for hire. You shoot it, they own it. You technically wouldn't even be able to post it on your website if that's the case, unless they license it to you. You typically will charge more for that. I have a nonprofit that I'm shooting for in a couple of months, and they kind of like sprung that on me at the end, and sometimes they'll do that. And so it's a good idea, and that's fine for this situation. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I'm going to see if they're willing to negotiate on that. But in the end of the day, it's not that important to me. But some like larger companies will spring it on you, and then it's like, you've already made an agreement. And anyway, to me, it's not. I always prefer to own my images for a variety of reasons, but the most important to me is actually not what you might expect. The most important to me is like, what if I see a moment that has nothing to do with the job and I want to grab the shot? Like I've done some portraits for celebrities, for example, and if I was a work for hire, I wouldn't own those, and that would have upset me quite a bit. Or like, I'm shooting for Westfield here, and hypothetically, let's say I see something across the street while I'm technically on the job, and I photograph it, and it's unrelated. I want to own those photos. To use anything to push through editing, like coffee, food, or music. Yeah, what I did, I'm always thirsty too, man. Whenever I do these, like I get really thirsty and my mouth gets dry talking this much. I don't talk a lot normally, I don't think. I don't know. But I have like a giant thermos. I made sure I ate before, and I have my coffee right here. Sometimes I focus without music, sometimes I focus with music. Sometimes I'll listen to a podcast. It just depends. I think for culling, I'm usually listening to music because it's more monotonous. It doesn't require a lot of thinking. You guys can see I'm like talking as I do it. It's not really very distracting. I have so much work I wish I could share with you guys, but a lot of what I shot actually, coincidentally, had a buyout. So yeah, what started out as me being really conservative later in the day, like I did a lot of experimentation and I ended up shooting a lot. I'll show you guys what I mean when I get there. These are all with a 50, by the way. So a lot of these shots I had to really compromise on. Like some of them weren't. I knew, I'm like, this is not a very artistic shot. This is not a very interesting shot to me. But the name of the game was Westfield, right? And so even if there's a really cool building for a background, if it didn't have the branding, it wasn't really what I was there for. And so, I had to kind of compromise on that a bit. Sometimes I always recommend that you sync the time of your cameras prior to a job. It makes it easier. First of all, you want them to appear chronologically, but it just makes it easier. But sometimes I'll also edit by filtering down to the actual camera I want to edit, which files I want to edit. It makes it easier for batch editing, so that like all the 5D files, for example, will be together. You guys see, I think I fixed my time later in the day. I realized it was a bit off, plus the daylight savings. And so here I have like R6, and then it's like interspersed here, I guess. And anyway, one of the experiments I was running was just handheld, slow shutter speeds. I wanted to show some motion blur. And so that's when I shot kind of a lot. You guys will see a lot of crap on my sensor that you don't typically see unless you're down to like F8, probably F8, F11, F16. And so you can see clearly I need to clean my camera sensor. It's not a huge deal. I'm going to edit these down to like 1, or 2, whatever. And so I don't have to edit dust out of so many images, but in the future I should definitely, before my next week, my next job, I'll make sure I clean that. Also, the lighting conditions changed later in the day, which made it rough for people finishing the race later. It wasn't overcast at that point. It was really hot and sunny. In fact, I kind of burnt my eyes out from it. Yeah, we'll do that. So here's a good example when I would normally switch to like the 5D files only. Oh, what? Oh, never mind. And then I could just batch edit those down. I can see them all side by side, but we're not actually going to do it that way for now. I'll do that later. Have I ever shot an event exclusively on film? No. I'm like a photography millennial. I was kind of in between the film and the digital age, where when I went to college, they looked down on digital. I've said this before, but it's pretty funny. UCLA, like at UCLA, they were always like, that's not art if it's on a digital camera. I'm like, it's like, okay. I wasn't an early adopter of digital, but I thought that was a bit silly. And years later, they tore down their darkroom. Not many years later, by the way. So I believe a lot of colleges started rebuilding their darkrooms. I don't know what they're doing. There's easier ways to get back to where you're at, but I'm distracted. Okay, easier way. I'm going to go to my rejected. I'm going to go to my last rejected shot. Select everything. Alright, now go to picked and non-picked. And it shouldn't have clicked off it. Oh, it doesn't matter. Here we go. This is fine. I'm going to have to do another pass when I'm truly paying attention. I also often edit down at least the first round or two in a grid. It's quicker. It's one of the reasons I want a larger screen, and I don't want to get the 24-inch iMac. But because you guys are watching, all 5 of you, not a lot, but because people are watching, I'm going one by one. So you guys see, I'm just kind of like experimenting with different crowd sizes, different runners, different shutter speeds. I by no means plan on delivering this many. I'll probably deliver like a couple of these. You know, I've talked about how I like to always challenge myself and bring something new to the table at every job if I can. And one of the ways I've done that has been to shoot film, whether it's having like a medium format film camera and then shooting a portrait of someone, or maybe running a roll through a camera. So I've done that, but I haven't. I wanted to experiment with sort of silhouetting, but didn't work out. So I've done that. And it's really rewarding, you know, to like, especially when you get close to 36 frames that look great, you know, to make every frame of film a hit is rewarding if you can pull it off. So that's kind of been the idea in the past, but so many shots. So Lonely Path, I photographed a disruption protest at a mall on film, and I thought there was enough light, but the light meter kept reading 0.5 seconds for each shot. Even though tungsten light and certain types of light appear as bright as daylight to us, it actually doesn't register as bright. So it could have been that. I remember in the film days, like, you couldn't change the white balance, but you could get a filter. I remember I bought one because I didn't understand photography at that point. And I'm like, why are all my shots really orange? And the lab instructor was like, oh, you got to get this filter, but it wasn't really worth it in a way. I'm actually gonna switch and just shoot my edit my R6 files first. So here I'm experimenting. I just wanted to get a shot of a runner right under the Westfield tower there. I already know which one I'm going to keep because I remember, but there's a moment a guy started running with the people running the marathon. I don't think he was a marathon runner, just to cheer them on, and he was running backward. And so you can't tell in the shot, but we'll see in a moment. Oh, here. That's, I think. See if he's in focus. I don't recall. I may have been purposely focusing on the tower. Maybe not. Maybe it's not super sharp, it looks like. But yeah, he was actually running backward. Let me see, did I? Actually, keep both. When I clicked this, I totally thought it was a VOD, a video of a past live stream. Oh, not live, you mean? What's your opinion for the buyout rate versus normal rate, and how should it... that's a tough one for me, honestly. It also depends, like, if they want a buyout, but they're going to use it for... I'm not an expert on this stuff. I'm not going to lie to you. I can't... I'm trying to think. I can give you my answer, but not an objective answer. You know? But I feel like if they're just going to use it consistent with your usual usage rights, like for me, it's like posting online, making copies, that kind of thing, non-commercial, like 50% more, I'll charge. But if it's something like you're doing a photo shoot that should be like $17,000 because it's commercial, and they're like, oh, we just want a buyout, and then they don't have to like license anything from you later on, then it doesn't make sense. But if we're talking strictly event photography and pretty standard, yeah, I would say like something around there would be okay. About 50% more. If your rate's 200, maybe 300. Yep. Way more editing than my usual type of work. But I really wanted to experiment here. I was really practicing and experimenting with like the burst capabilities of my camera. And problem is I do not enjoy editing down at all. Watching this kind of made me want to run a marathon. But I'm no runner. Yeah, truthfully, I don't think I'm going to deliver a lot of these. I just don't think it'll be useful to my client. So by the way, like, as I'm editing these down, what I'm doing is I'm actually like visualizing them as a crop, which is why I kept a lot of them. So something like that, so I get the branding right there, and it's just a tighter frame. So okay, let's go to the grid. I'll often kind of go back and forth. I thought this was really cool. A parent running with their child, you know. So I think this is when I turned on the 20 frames per second. And you just tap it and you get like 5 shots. Like literally tap it. It's just too easy to like shoot too much. But if you really want to make sure you get the best possible shot out of a sequence, you know, the more the better. Oops. Let's see where we... I thought these guys were kind of cool. They were filming for the marathon, but they were riding around on a motorcycle. I just realized I like pseudo thought today was Tuesday. I did shoot these yesterday. And it will probably take me an extra day before I deliver them. I don't think I'll get it done tonight. I'm trying, after being so busy with work and after having a year in which, because of COVID, I wasn't as busy as I wanted to be. And so I made myself busy with like other projects and all. I'm trying to like give myself more of a break. And in the past, I would take the breaks, but then I would beat myself up over the breaks. Like, so I'd do something else other than work stuff. But like, I never really enjoyed it. And so I'm trying to take smaller breaks and then bigger breaks. And that's why I took that trip to San Francisco. You know, I saw an opportunity. I'm like, okay, I probably can squeeze 4 days in if I get my editing done. And so I'm not going to beat myself up too much if I don't get it done tonight. If I have, I've been amazing at delivering for this client right away by the Monday following, but usually the jobs are on Fridays or Saturdays. And so I think I'll be okay. Sometimes I press something and I actually don't know why it will go to the last frame in the gallery. I haven't figured that one out yet. Bruce, what's your thoughts on stopping down further to get the branding more in focus? I did in other images. Right now we're looking at a lot of R6 files. with the 5D3, I shoot with a wider depth of field. I kind of like with the, I usually like embrace what the lens is great at too. Like the 50 is great because it has that 1.2, so I do those isolated detail shots, and this specific client really likes those. Why? See, okay, so here I had, I think, the electronic shutter still on, and I tapped it to get one shot of this sign, and I ended up with like 7 or so. I'm not trying to support, like, you know, I don't get paid to say this, but this brand had some really good food. It was like catered to me, like someone who can't eat anything. It was pretty awesome. They had these little like power balls of different types. Like one was like a cookie dough, but no sugar or anything. Kind of like the cacao balls I'll like make, which are dates, some type of nuts. It can be made with different nuts, some coconut flakes. So they had one like that. They had a raspberry one. They had a matcha tea one. Really, really good. Like I straight up was like, maybe I'll actually subscribe. They do like a subscription service. I was like, maybe I'll actually do it. I gotta look into it. It's probably way too much money for what it is. I recall I had the 70 to 200, and I really wanted this moment, but I couldn't really zoom out enough, and so my cropping's weird. I like these ones. I think this guy had a hard time getting down the stairs after running 26.2 miles. my career goal is to be as busy as I was in October and September, mostly October, all year, and then just hiring someone to edit for me. It's by far the least enjoyable part of the job. And it's the culling, not the actual editing. That's easy. So my reason for getting this shot, for example, was to try to get... Oh man, I messed it up. To try to get all birds in the background. But then like they kept... like more and more people kept jumping in, and so like in the end I think I missed it, but at least I have that. It's not the greatest shot in the world, but... So I'm probably going to actually mark a lot of these, which I, for non-deliverable, meaning like it's a good image or whatever, but I don't want to deliver it. So I usually use yellow for that personally, and then I filter everything. I filter the yellow out. I'll do that later, but there's a lot of these like close-up candidates where they're not interacting with products and they're really just running the marathon. So a little bit out of the scope of what I was there to do. So I don't deliver those. This was a series of images I really liked quite a bit. You could, at first I thought the woman on the right, who looks like, she didn't look like she just ran 26 miles at all. I thought she was just helping her friend at the last stretch, but I think she ran it too because she has a, whatever you call the identification plate, sticker or whatever. But yeah, just seeing her friend who was really emotional and just like struggling but powering through it, and her supporting her, like it actually made me emotional. It was really beautiful. So I shot a whole burst. I really wanted to make sure I caught that moment, and I'm still not sure which I'll edit down to. It's kind of tough. That's just a YouTube one, the one I quickly grabbed for a thumbnail. And then I love when people are like, oh no, I could never run a marathon. And then you see like an older gentleman here, and this just seemed pretty casual about the damn thing. And this is not the like later group of people. Like, this is like the first group of people, at least in the first half. I'm not an expert, but I really think it so much of it is just acclimating and just mentality. All right, any questions? So much emotion in those photo bursts. Yeah, it was really cool to be there. It really was. Like, I'm not someone who would be like, hey, I want to go to a marathon and root people on. Like, that doesn't seem like something I'd ever think to do, but being there and photographing it, it was really beautiful. It was incredibly, incredibly touching. I'm pretty sure a lot of people watching, cheering people on, didn't know any of the runners. I really think that was the case. Paul. Hi, Mick. Lately I've been shooting outside during the midday and I see a lot of purple fringing. Is there a way to limit the purple color? I think there's a way. I'm not 100% sure. I've dealt with it in the past, but not to the point where I've bothered to care enough. Honest. Um, I would start with like making sure you have your so if you scroll down, I have mine to do it automatically, but you could enable profile corrections, remove chromatic aberration. You could do that. I think that's what you're looking for. Any other questions? I think I got them all. I clearly don't understand marathons too, because some of these people didn't look like they had broken a sweat. I'm like, what the hell? I don't get it. And then I was asking people like, what's it like? What's it feel like? Because you'd think they'd be wiped out. And some of them seemed okay. I'm like, they must be running on like endorphins. This guy, I don't think ran it. He's just kind of following. I'm thinking like a client of his, and just rooting him on. Kind of wish I got the client in the shot. And this group was just going crazy. I got a bunch of them with the 5D3 files. I'll check those out later. Again, wanted to get the Nordstrom in the background. You need to know what you're there for, what the intended use of the files are going to be, that kind of thing. I shot a lot of this. I was just trying to get the right moment again. This woman was awesome, and I think her daughter, like, most people do not dance to the DJ, you know what I mean? At these events, and she was just going for it. I loved it. It was really cool. Actually, that was me in San Francisco. I'm not a dancer. I totally danced at a bar. But they played my song, you know? I had to do it. I'd play it for you guys, but I don't want to get demonetized, even though I don't really make money on the live streams. I don't know why. I don't know. It seems to be... It just seems to be worked out differently when you live stream. Or maybe because they don't get a lot of views after the stream. Not that they get many during the stream. I haven't really figured it out. But alright, I'm going to switch to the 5D files. I actually got through that a little quicker than I thought I was going to. Some of these I've already gone through, but I'll do it quickly. Sometimes I'll use the big dials, whatever these are, the big buttons, for like the kind of like, I think of it as like hacking away, you know, you maybe use a machete, but then you need a more precise tool later on. And so like, if I know, okay, that's just like a full stop or two off, I'll just quickly correct it there. And then I'll, you know, edit more finely in the develop module. The reason, not for this job so much, but for other jobs at the same location, I'll deliver many different crowd sizes and let them pick, But mostly I'm going, like I said earlier in the stream, I'm going for extremes. So I'm looking for like fully empty to get the setup, and then as busy as possible to show what the interaction was like, what the foot traffic was like, etc. If you don't know, the double arrow would be a full stop, basically. If you're in like exposure, the single arrow is like a third stop. The more you do this, the more you kind of like intuitively know how many stops of light you're over or under. So these are not displaying in order, I think, because I changed the time on my camera, but it still shouldn't be this off because I changed for daylight saving, so it's kind of weird. I don't know why this file is in between these files. Okay, quite a few questions real quick. Is there a benefit with editing? I'm going to stop and say no. It's more that Adobe, they introduced DNG as an archival format so that they'll always support a DNG file, in other words. Whereas there's no guarantee like your Canon RAW file will be supported by their software in 20 years kind of thing. And then we have an answer. Yeah, DNG is also a RAW format, but created to allow smaller brands. Okay, yeah, I see your point. That makes sense. Sorry, I didn't read the whole thing, but to allow smaller brands access to RAW world or files. I'm guessing smaller brands, they just natively do DNG. I would think would be their solution. Unless you mean that what they're doing is that so that if you have like a GoPro, you can convert it to a DNG and then it will play nicely with Lightroom. I'm not sure which you mean, but it makes sense. So no pros, no cons, just an open RAW. Well, yeah, I think it's open for manufacturers to use, but I think I may have been photographing Adobe Max when they actually introduced it, and I vaguely remember them saying, or maybe I read it a different year, that the idea was that it would be like an archival kind of thing, that DNG will always be supported. For me, there's no drawback to it unless you're in a time crunch and you just need to edit. You'll notice, well, maybe someone will notice. Initially I imported and converted to DNG, but then when I imported my 5D files, for some reason it did a double import, and it was a glitch. It's no setting, and I didn't double shoot, like for redundancy on the same card or something. It just made a duplicate of every image, and not a virtual duplicate, an actual duplicate. And it was quicker for me, I decided, because I don't know another way of like getting rid of all the doubles other than manually removing them. I just deleted all the 5D files and then imported them in through like my Finder, and then added it into Lightroom instead of importing and adding in Lightroom. I don't know if I know everyone understood me. I'm getting tired. I just feel like that didn't make sense. But yeah, I would stay. I would if you have the time, just go DNG. It really can't hurt, I don't think. Just need a second to catch up on emails and text messages real quick. Good question. As an event photographer, what would you say is the most challenging aspect of it all? I truly believe that's going to come down to you and your personality type. Some people might really hate mingling, and some people feel really uncomfortable approaching people and verbally approaching them. Some people don't like just the idea of like standing in front of someone and photographing them, which I kind of addressed in my last video. You know, if you get in your head you're there for a reason, people understand that. You know, essentially you do just need to get over it, but I kind of gave some tips in the last video on how you can work to get over that. But I don't know if there's an answer. For me, the most challenging, narrow it down for me, like challenging on the job, the lifestyle, etc. If you narrow it down for me, I bet I could give you a better answer. I think probably though for most it would, if we're talking full time, it would be the uncertainty. Freelancing is not for everyone, and it can take many years until you're. I mean, you might realize you can do it full time in a year, but it will probably take longer than that for you to feel like you're at a point where the work will always come in, or for you to have known you built a large enough client base where they're guaranteeing you work. I mean, the dream is you have a client or a few clients that reliably keep you busy. This is a newer client. Only like a couple of months ago did they find me, but they've reliably been giving me like a few jobs a month already, which has been awesome. So these are me just having fun and trying to find some time to experiment. I wanted to shoot some more artistic like silhouette shots. I'll probably edit one to kind of bring out the mall. And that one will be for my client. I don't know. Uncertainty is good at times, and so is stress, but not when it's chronic, you know? Stress is actually good for your body, but chronic stress isn't. So actually kind of Details matter. So I grabbed this shot, saw the trash can, moved it out. Oh, okay. I'm just trying to remember what I was trying to accomplish with this shot. Oops. Some of these I do for not for aesthetics, but so that they can like see visuals of what their setup was, like what the road closures were like too. For future events for them. Oh, so this was weird. And I don't know what was going on, but this happened to my more than one of my shots when I pointed it at somewhat toward the sun, and I don't know what caused it. I tried. I think I shot a blank here. I'm like, what the hell is that? Did my like shutter go out? It is an old camera. It's weird. Well, I'm curious if anyone knows what this was all about. It's only ISO 100. I don't know. Very strange. Someone let me know if you know what's going on here. Like lens flare, that kind of thing was expected, but not it getting all pixelated like that. Fix you later. Oh, these guys were funny. It was the end of the day, so I was having fun, but they would do this thing. They'd be like, "Hey, you over there," and then all four of them would be like, "You can do it." Like, it was just funny. And they were doing that for like, I don't know how long they stood there doing that. And so I tried to get like a good shot of that. I have a whole bunch of them coming up. Of me trying to. Oh yeah, I think that must have been one of the people they said it to. Shot's not good though. I think I eventually stand under, kind of below them. I didn't really get what I wanted. I realized to get the shot I really wanted, I'd have to stand in the middle of the route. So I kind of like quickly did it, but shot a lot of her just to try to get the right shot that I was looking for. It's got alcohol. Alright, so that's everything in the first round. I feel like I've got a lot more to do, but I think I need a mental break from it. I'm feeling pretty tired more because I talked through the whole thing and kind of shared what I was up to, what I was looking for, and answered questions, and so I'm a little bit more tired than I'd normally be from a round of editing, but that's okay. I'm going to try to go and take a break and do something I will enjoy, like the dog park. And I'll hit this later tonight and finish it up in the morning. If anyone's still watching and wants to ask a question about the work or anything else, event photography related or whatever, go ahead and get that in. I'll still answer it. But then I'll be done for the day. So far, I've gotten, again, overshot this one because I wanted to try certain things, but I got 1442 down to 665. I'm not ever editing down for a number. I just want to give a high quality of work that has a good range of coverage. I don't want my client choosing between 5 practically the same shots. However, if there is reason enough for them to be a little bit different, I will still deliver that. And if it's of people, I tend to feel like maybe a little bit less so for this type of job, but if you're shooting like a private party, I would recommend, like, if you feel like they're distinct enough then maybe let your client decide which one they like best, because no one's better at deciding what we look best in than ourselves, you know. It's easy to say, hey Mike, you look the best in here, or Tom, you look best here, but like they might not agree, and what matters is what they like. So I'll try to do another live stream maybe in a week or two. I have a lot of work on this computer and my other one that I can share. Some I can't because they were full buyouts, and I don't feel comfortable even doing a live stream sharing that work. But yeah, all right. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate all of you. Thank you for standing by me while I had to take a pretty big break. I think it took me 6 weeks between videos, but I was just working nonstop. Now that my work is more manageable, I'm still working every weekend for now, but not like 3-4 jobs a week, which is really hard to keep up with if you're trying to edit each job prior to the next. So I'll be more available. I'll be doing more live streams. I'll be making more content. And then I'll start writing articles for my blog again when things get really slow. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate all of you as per usual. A special thank you to my Patreon supporters. I know I lost like one during this period, and that's fine. That's okay. That's expected. But most of you stood by me, and I really appreciate you. If you're not a Patreon supporter and you do want to support me on this channel, I would really love your support. You can go ahead and at any level, it unlocks a lot of bonus content, and I'm not just putting videos, I'm also putting up things like photography proposals I write. I've put up a contract, that kind of thing. Things I wish I had when I was starting out and I had to like search the internet for and never really get anything good. All right, thank you all. I appreciate it.